is LBC. From Global, leading Britain's conversation, the Nigel Farage Show.
Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you, Donald, and good evening, everybody. Well, the Conservative Party conference is in full swing, though to be fair, I think really the passion is actually on the fringe. I was up in Birmingham yesterday, did an event in the afternoon with a couple of Tory MPs, and indeed a Labour one. It was a Brexit event, it won't surprise you to know. There were big crowds there. Today, all of the meetings attracting big crowds, those in favour of a close relationship with the EU, equally attracting, goodish crowds. The Eurosceptic, Bruges Group, etc. meetings, absolutely ram-packed. At times in the hall, it's not been that exciting. Attorney General Jeremy Hunt spoke. I looked at the pictures. The room was less than 5% full, so that wasn't very exciting. But the big story of the day is, of course, the Chancellor of the Exchequer's big speech. Now, he's called Spreadsheet Phil. He's nicknamed as Eeyore. Always seemed to be very gloomy and very downbeat. But he started his speech today with his most upbeat prediction on Brexit to date.
Negotiating and preparing for Brexit is one of the most complex tasks ever undertaken by a peacetime government. So over the next few weeks, we must stand together, foursquare behind the PM, to get the best possible outcome for Britain. While at the same time taking the precaution of preparing for the possibility of no deal. And I want you to be in no doubt that I will maintain enough fiscal firepower in my locker to support our economy if that happens. But I'm going to stick my neck out here today and make a prediction to you that when the Prime Minister gets a deal agreed, there will be a boost to our economic growth, a deal dividend, which we will share in line with our balanced approach between keeping taxes low, supporting public services, reducing the deficit and investing in Britain's future.
I think he was pretty clear there that there is going to be a deal. I've been saying for a couple of weeks now, I think there will be a deal. Whether it's the right one for Brexiteers, I don't know. But at least for once, he was being reasonably optimistic. He did try humour a few times, and I'm afraid that didn't go down quite so well. Particularly, he said, well, of course the Chequers plan will work. People said the light bulb wouldn't be a success back in the 1800s, and other attempts to make people laugh that didn't work. But at least he was more upbeat about Brexit and where we're going. But he then went on to try and paint the Conservatives as being the party of business. See if you believe him.
We back business as the cornerstone of a successful economy, as a force for good in our society, and as an essential expression of our values. So just in case anyone, anywhere in the world was in any doubt at all, let me say it loud and clear. The Conservative Party is and always will be the party of business.
Well, traditionally, of course, the Conservatives were the party of business, but are they still seen as the party of business? And this comes as Michael Spencer, who's been a big donor to the Tory party. He's a former Tory party treasurer, somebody, if I used to work with him back in the 1980s, somebody who set up his own company, has been massively successful, and he warned the big, medium and small business community are genuinely really upset, disappointed and shocked that whenever the Prime Minister talks about business, she seems to focus on bad examples as opposed to the vast majority who have been successful, invested their own money, paid their taxes and contributed to the economy. They are the economy. Without them, the country collapses. So that's a pretty strong bit of criticism from Michael Spencer. And another comment I thought was very interesting, Brent Hoberman, who is the executive chairman of a technology investor called Founders Factory, and he said, I'm very much hoping they now see business and entrepreneurship is central to what the country needs. They are Tories, after all. Isn't it extraordinary that you've got people having to reiterate that the Conservative Party is the party of business? My view is they do listen to big businesses. They will listen to multinationals. They will listen to Goldman Sachs. But this Prime Minister and I think this Chancellor, frankly, have almost no understanding or connection in any way with the 5.2 million people in this country who are sole traders, who run their own businesses, who provide over 60% of the jobs in the private sector, and without whom this country would not run. The entrepreneurs, the people, and everything from a local taxi driver running his own business to somebody with a plumbing business, whatever it may be. Without those companies paying their taxes and employing people, this country's in trouble. I think they've lost the connection. I don't think small businesses believe these Conservatives are on their side. So please tell me, and I'm particularly keen to hear from you, if you own your own business, you're a sole trader, you're self-employed, do you feel the Conservatives are on your side? Let me know on 0345 6060 973. Maybe you think they just care about big business, they couldn't give a damn about us, in which case text to 84850 and tell me, maybe this prognosis that Brexit's going to be a disaster, maybe it won't be so bad after all. Tweet using the hashtag Farage and LBC at LBC, and of course you can comment on Facebook. I'm live in the European Parliament in Strasbourg, where tomorrow Mr. Tusk, who was so rude to our Prime Minister, will tell us about that exchange. Let's go to Ryan in Ealing, a new caller to this show. Ryan, good evening.
Very, very good evening to you, Nigel. It's an honour to speak to you.
Well, thank you.
I think you pretty much summed up. I own a small company. I've done for many, many years.
Yep.
I can't even listen. That speech you played was very painful to listen to. And I just wanted to say, because society doesn't hear from people like me, but I've owned a small company for many, many years, and the EU have killed us. If we don't start turning around in the next 2 months, we're going to call it a day. And do you know what, Nigel? When Corbyn gets in, Communist Corbyn gets in, I will sign on the dole. I will get my taxes paid, my council tax paid, like everyone else, because there is not one person in that government that understands anything about running a business in this country. They've killed us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ryan,
EU killed us.
Ryan, I have to say, I've got great sympathy with you. You know, when we hear this business debate, particularly about Brexit, we keep hearing about our trade with Europe and how important it is. And I've made this point before, Ryan, I'll make it again. Only 12% of the UK economy is exporting goods and services to the European Union, and yet the other 88% are bound by every single EU directive, law and rule. And what basically May and Hammond are proposing, Ryan, with their Chequers deal, is that you would stay bound to that European rule book. It does not make sense, does it?
Absolutely right. The EU's killed us, Nigel. What they did, I won't go into details, but they basically took everything away from us. And do you remember when Cameron got into power, he vowed to get rid of every Quango? Well,
yeah.
The Quangos, along with the EU, have killed us. Absolutely killed us.
I mean, the Quangos actually love EU law and they enforce it upon our...
do they? Yeah.
Almost a perverse pleasure in doing it. Whilst at the same time, Ryan, you've got giant multinationals paying almost no corporation tax in our country at all. It is a joke. Stick with it, Ryan. Good luck. Thank you for your call. And got to tell you, folks, I think there are huge numbers of Ryans out there. And if the Conservative Party, particularly with a really very left-wing Shadow Chancellor and indeed leader in Jeremy Corbyn, if the Conservatives are not going to be getting the votes of people like Ryan running their own business, they have got problems. Robert is another new caller from Huddersfield. Robert, good evening. Hello, Robert. No, he's not there. Dennis is there. Dennis in Lowson. Hello.
Hello, Nigel.
Good evening. Welcome to the show. So, do you think this government is on the side of small business?
No. I think the small business people have, we've got probably 12 to 15 people in our business.
Yeah.
We pay a lot of money in employer contributions and this, that and the other. Business rates, we've got free premises. We need help on business rates.
Yep.
Help. Easy to employ. If you employ the same subcontractor for a long period, there's a very grey area of should he be PAYE, people just give him 20% on his number. They should just say, you want, as long as you take 20% UTR and you pay it to HMRC, the problem. You need to encourage small entrepreneurial people to say, right, I'm going to use subcontracted labour, maybe for a prolonged period, and it's going to be made easy for me. And the fact that we collect income tax for the government, we should get almost like a little rubber stamp, for a silly word, but we should get a little bit of help and a little bit of encouragement for the good thing that we do. And unless they start looking at business rates for small businesses, you've got a big problem. I don't think anyone else is much better, so I think they're missing a trick. If they had a small group and called it the Small Business Advisory Group, got very good, prominent Conservative was old who understand the nuts and bolts at the coalface.
At the moment, Dennis, I'm not sure you've got much of a voice in number 10 at all. Dennis, I thank you. I'm going to go back to Robert, who was calling from Huddersfield. Robert, hello.
Pleasure to speak to you, Nigel. I'm following on from the last two chaps. Let's say I'm 2 months younger than you. I'm the same age. I started work in 1980, and I worked in a heavy goods dealership. Every Ford trucks, everything was British. Everything on the back was British. Everything they used was British. By 1990, it were all gone. Ford now belongs to Fiat. Everything belongs to European. Europe destroyed our industry. Now, I came back from Iraq in 2003 as a TA soldier, a hands-on mechanic, into my dad's business. He started in 1968 with his mate, and they said, right, you're working for us, so I had to go there. They're now retired. I now run that business. At one time, I had 3 blokes working for us. It's down to me now. Employees they are a luxury. I cannot afford to employ anymore. I can't charge.
And is that Robert because of the cost of employers' contributions, or I mean, what's the real reason for that?
Well, it's employers' minimum wage, and it's getting the work. I've got to charge out that rate to my customers. My customer base has been destroyed because the government has printed free money, and they've gone out and bought cheap cars on 0% finance on these car loans where they don't pay anything. That destroyed my customer base. It went. I've no customers because they've all gone out and got cheap cars on the drip that I can't. That I don't get a with.
Well, Robert, I mean, there are changes that take place in business, and not always government's fault. But do you think that Theresa May and Philip Hammond have any sort of understanding of how tough it is?
No, because none of them's ever run a business.
No, well, do you know what, Robert? I couldn't agree more. I've said it before, hardly any of them have ever run their own business or ever had a proper job. Robert, thank you, and I'm sorry you're having a tough time. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC. It's now 6:15. Chancellor Philip Hammond says the Conservatives are the party of business. Do you know, I ran a small business for 9 years. I never felt anybody was on my side. All I ever saw was more and more red tape, more and more costs with lawyers, accountants, just keeping up with legislation. That was my experience of it. And hey, that was 20 years ago. And I do really worry that if Chequers goes through, we keep the 88% of our economy that does not sell stuff to Europe, bound by European rule book. Surely the 5.2 million of you out there that are running your own businesses, acting as sole traders, need a bit of a break. And Brexit could, I think, bring that break, but I'm not so sure it will with this Prime Minister and with this Chancellor. Tell me, do you think they're on your side? And if you are driving home, having run your business for the day, please pull over and call me on 0345 6060 973. Before I get back to that, Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt spoke yesterday at the Tory party conference, and he said something that I've been saying for over a decade here, over and over.
You, European friends, seem to think the way to keep the club together is to punish a member who leaves, not just with economic disruption, but even by breaking up the United Kingdom with a border down the Irish Sea. Now, what happened to the confidence and ideals of the European dream? The EU was set up to protect freedom. It was the Soviet Union that stopped people leaving. And the lesson from history is clear. If you turn the EU club into a prison, the desire to get out of it won't diminish, it'll grow. And we won't be the only prisoner that will want to escape.
Well, there we are. I've said all this before. I've said again and again, it's rather like the new Soviet. I even gave a comparison to the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the Volkerkerker, as it was known, the prison of nations. Because when I said these things a decade ago, I was written off as being some sort of wild-eyed, mad pariah. Now we've got the Foreign Secretary saying it. Could be a leadership big coming soon, it seems to me. Hi, Nigel, I get by text. This is why I think the Tories are good for some small businesses. At the end of 2007, I started a small food business, and a few months later, we had the market crash. And the people that were having meals in restaurants started coming to my fast food shop, which helped me succeed. Well, I think the financial crash actually happened under Labour, but I'm pleased your business is doing well. I own a small company, and whilst the Tories aren't perfect, the alternative of the Labour government doesn't bear thinking about. And I suspect there'll be quite a lot of small business people, medium-sized business people, particularly medium-sized businesses where, what the Labour Party were talking about last week was over a certain number of employees, 10% of your own private equity you'd have to give to the workers. But what we should be getting here, if the Conservatives are going to storm back at the next election with a clear majority, what we should be getting here are the 5.2 million of you running your businesses out there in the real world, paying taxes, employing people. You should be overwhelmingly supporting the Conservatives. My sense is that you're not. Marcus rather sums it up by saying the Tories are not on the side of small businesses. They have increased the flat rate VAT scheme, which has made it effectively useless. They've increased red tape by introducing real-time submissions to HMRC, also introducing more tax on dividends. Marcus, I think there are lots of small businesses who would agree with that. And don't forget, after the last election, the first budget, they were going to put taxes up for the self-employed. There was an uproar and they dropped it. But it shows you, in my view, their instincts. Please tell me I'm wrong. Ashley is calling from Chiswick, a new caller to this show. Hi, Ashley.
Hello, Nigel. I mean, sadly, it's just going to be a bit of an echo chamber to what you've already said. And, a small business owner, we turn over just under $1 million a year. There are 6 of us on the firm, including the 2 directors, and we pay corporation tax. For a small company like ours, the Chancellor is probably the highest paid employee on the firm, and he doesn't.
But Ashley, if you were Google, or if you were Google or Starbucks, you'd be in a better tax.
Exactly, this is the irony of it, and I just don't understand it. And we're paying $1.50 a litre for diesel.
Yeah.
There's 20% if you're operating within the general public. And again, we communicate and we sort of have a lot of our suppliers are small businesses, and a lot of our customers are small businesses. And this 20% VAT. I mean, it's Looney Tunes. I mean, if people actually saw that as an element of what they buy, I mean, I know they do, but, when you look at that, you think, Jesus, I'm selling something for 600 quid, and my client has to pay 720. So, it really bites.
Was there anything, Ashley?
You're an international man, Nigel. Would you straighten me out on something? We sell bits and bobs to Europe.
Yeah.
A guy phones me up from Denmark or France or wherever, and he says, can I buy X amount of these? I say, yeah, this is how much it costs. You want to organise your own shipping? Yes, we do a deal. Why do I need a bureaucrat involved in that in any way? They get their end from my end when we pay tax, and they get their end from the other guys, other businessmen.
Well, the argument, Ashley, would be, I suppose, if you're doing overseas business, there needs to be some sort of rule book in place. But my real point to you, Ashley, and to others, is 88% of our economy takes place within the United Kingdom, is not exports to Europe. It's either there's probably 10% of the rest of the world, the other 80% within the UK, and I just don't think government understands. Was there anything you heard from Hammond today that cheered you up?
Quite frankly, anything I hear from any politician, I mean, it strikes me, and you may regard this as rather cynical, and I think,
I've lost. Ashley, you're driving. Ashley, you're driving, aren't you? You didn't pull over. The line's rotten. Thank you for the call. I'm going to have to move on. On Twitter, I get the reason Philip Hammond needs to remind people that the Tories are the party of business is because in 2017 in the budget, he tried to hammer the self-employed entrepreneurs while big businesses pay peanuts. Mark, that is a sentiment shared by millions of people in this country. Paul is calling from Leeds and is another new caller to this show. Paul, good evening.
Hi, Nigel. Your last caller, I don't understand what he was trying to say because he harped on about corporation tax. Well, I'm a limited small company, and corporation tax is 19%, which is the lowest it's been. For me, it's great. If Labour get in, they've said they plan to increase it to 26%, which would cripple my business. So for me, I take a small salary and I take quite a bit in dividends, but the corporation tax is as low as it ever has been for me.
And lower corporation tax, Paul, does that mean that you effectively reinvest more money in your company?
Well, it means I can take a bit more dividends at the end of the year, which is, in effect, another way of taking a cheaper salary, which is taxed less than a salary would be. Now, I think Labour is anti-business. It's more for the workers, giving more workers' rights, which is not a bad thing, but, they want to increase workers' rights and cripple business with unions and putting pressure onto businesses. I mean, what the Tories could do, which would, I think everybody in the country thinks the same thing about companies that I see, like Amazon, hundreds of millions of pounds and not paying any tax. And then they're asking me to pay my fair share of tax, but these companies are not paying any. What's going on? It's not right.
And Paul, do you employ people?
I employ one person as well as me.
Right, okay. So basically, Paul, your message is the Tories are a damn sight better than Labour would be.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, I'm sure a lot of people are concerned about what was said about business in the Labour Party conference last week. Let's go to Andy in Woking, another new caller. Hi, Andy.
Yeah, hi, Nigel. How you doing?
Good. So what you run your own business too, yeah?
I do. I run my own business. I left Scotland in 88, started my own business in England in 1996. We're a small construction company. I worked with old guys over the years. I'm 55, 56 now. And when I first started the company, a guy walked in my office and offered me private health. I took it out for myself and my workforce. That was 1996. It cost, I don't know, whatever it was, a couple of grand a year. That gave me peace of mind. Anything happened to the guys, if they got hernias, if they got injuries, if their families were ill, stuff like that, they could get immediate treatment privately. Yep. Unfortunately, that's increased and it's gone up considerably, and the guys get taxed as a benefit in kind. So if it's costing me 500 quid a year to cover them, I pay them. They then have to declare it on their tax, and they actually pay tax on that £500 as if they've earned it, which to me seems ridiculous because I'm actually reducing.
And what you were doing, Andy, was actually going to take some of the burden off the National Health Service.
Exactly. That's what I don't understand. And it's still the same. They've all pulled out of it. And now they've got to ages 54 or 55. I mean, the guys have worked with them for 24 since I started. Yeah. They're now getting bad knees. They've pulled out because, okay, they were losing 200 or 300 quid over the year in tax. And now they're having to wait 3, 4, 5 months for operations on knees and hernias and stuff.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting.
I'm losing my workforce. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And incidentally, I employ half my workforce now is from the European Union and half are British, English. I was the only Scots guy. I was the only foreigner for 15 years, but now it's changed.
Yeah. Andy, thanks for that. No, you've raised a very interesting point, that actually what you could have done was to reduce the burden on the National Health Service and get your guys back to work a lot more quickly. Interesting point. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show, exclusively on LBC. It is now 6:30. I'm giving you the chance to bid for a private lunch with me for a great cause. LBC's charity, Global's Make Some Noise. It's a charity that supports small, brilliant projects across the UK, helping children and their families who are living with illness, disability, or a lack of opportunity. In 2017, I did this. We raised a lot of money. So what's the deal? You and 2 friends get the chance to come and join me for a lunch at Franco's restaurant in London. We'll do it on a Friday, which means I won't be broadcasting in the evening, so we can spend a bit of time, have some fun. Bidding closes at 6:45 on this Thursday evening. At the moment, the highest bid in is £7,600, so you've got to have deepish pockets, but if 3 of you want to come and have lunch with me for charity, you can do it by supporting Global's Make Some Noise. You've got to be over 18 to take part. Go to lbc.co.uk to find all terms and conditions.
Global's Make Some Noise. For those who don't get heard on LBC.
Now, one of my criticisms of this Prime Minister, and it's been pretty repeated, is that when Jeremy Paxman asks her 4 times in a general election campaign, do you now believe in Brexit? She won't answer. When LBC's Ian Dale interviews her in the studio and says to her, if there was another referendum, how would you now vote? And she can't give an answer. And all the way through this, I keep saying the problem is we've got a Remainer as a Prime Minister who doesn't believe in Brexit. Well, here she was yesterday morning on the BBC.
I do believe in Brexit, but crucially, I believe in delivering Brexit in a way that respects the vote and delivers on the vote of the British people, while also protecting our union, protecting jobs, and ensuring that we make a success of Brexit for the future. That's why I'm being ambitious for this country. That's why I want us to get a really good free trade deal with the European Union, which is what lies at the heart of the Chequers plan.
I believe in Brexit, says the Prime Minister. Wow, we haven't heard that before. Do we believe her? Did it sound convincing to you? Oh, well, of course, it is the Tory party conference, and there are quite a few people who would like to get rid of her as leader. I don't know. I'm not sure she believes in anything. Hey, back to the Chancellor. Now, he says very, very clearly that the Conservatives are the party of business, and there have been some big criticisms. Former Tory party treasurer Michael Spencer saying people are genuinely upset that this Prime Minister talks about putting caps on prices and intervening more and more regulation. And of course, with Chequers, they want to keep the 88% of our economy that does not export to Europe tied to European red tape and rules. I don't think that 5.2 million people out there working in small and medium-sized business, many of them are concerned about what a Labour government might do, but I don't think they're wholeheartedly behind this government. I don't think they connect. That is my view. Every one of you tonight is a new caller. Every one of you tonight runs your own business, which is exactly what I wanted. Jay is calling from Canary Wharf. You're welcome, Jay.
Oh, hi, Nigel. First of all, just wanted to say big fan of the show. Always listened to you, but never called in before.
Right, and you're calling in because this is your subject, yeah?
It is, yeah. This is the thing that I've been enraged about for probably about 2 years now. So I was a contractor in the city for many years. Lots of purgatory rules about that, getting worse and worse. I don't know, nobody ever mentions it, but last year they brought in forced IR35, which basically forces every contractor self-employed onto a much higher tax rate. And they also, I actually own 3 different small businesses.
Jay, when they did this, did you feel that you were actually being punished for being self-employed?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So my tax bill doubled overnight, and it just made me bail. And I just said, I'm not doing it anymore. So I also have 3 small businesses as well. And my tax bill, I've just sat and watched my tax bill double in the last 2 years. And you can no longer pay yourself any money, because as soon as you pay yourself more than £2,000, that tax rate's hitting you full force. And, it's just a nightmare. You get your tax bill and you pretty much got to save almost 50% of your gross now, before any expenses. It's literally out of control, and I don't really know what the answer is, because there's no alternative person to vote for. And if I could, I would just string this Hammond guy up by the neck and say, what are you doing? I voted for this party, but I did not vote for you. I didn't vote for Theresa May. But what's the alternative? I don't know. I'm literally at a loss of what to do.
I mean, Jay, you feel pretty abandoned by politics at the moment.
More than abandoned. I feel that they want everybody to just not be self-employed, so that everybody will just be PAYE and they can just take all your money. And I'm just so tired of it, and I don't really know what the solution is. It's just
it might be a start, Jay. It might be a start if we actually had some people in government who'd been in business, particularly in small and medium-sized business, and if we had a bit more emphasis on entrepreneurship as opposed to the big global corporates. Because when I talk to MPs and MEPs about business, oh yes, we had dinner last night with Unilever or Goldman Sachs or whoever it is, and they don't get, Jay, that what you guys do out there, you are massively bigger than who the CBI represent or organisations like that, and you haven't got a strong enough voice, have you?
No, and this is the thing about, I mean, I have a lot of friends in that industry, in the contracting industry, and we basically get overlooked when the discussions happen and the government feel that they can just push us around as a group. But we supply specialist skills into these big companies that enable them, and government departments and the NHS also, which aren't available on the open market, and they need those skills, and it's just making it more and more difficult for even for government departments to recruit and to get those skills they need. So they want to know why everything's falling to bits. They should start right here and start looking at the issue.
Jay, you made a very strong case. Very strong case for government listening and understanding what the impacts of their policies are. Thank you very much indeed for that call. Your texts and tweets. The government has no idea. As a small business, we have to collect VAT for them. Yep. Calculate and pay PAYE. Yep. Contribute to pensions. Yep. Comply with all the employment laws and still find time to get in orders to provide work to existing employees and interview for additional employees. Sometimes makes you wonder whether it's worth having your own business, says Jill of Chelmsford. Jill, got to tell you, I often thought that in the 9 years that I ran my own business. I thought I'm actually running to stand still. And you talk about VAT and PAYE. The reality is, I would think the vast majority of you out there running your own businesses who've got to deal with that, you are paying accountants to do that for you. Increasingly, you need lawyers, and this is another huge tax on business. Nigel, I'm a small business, and I can't see a mainstream party who will help business thrive as much as I would like. Although the Tories, no doubt, are better than Labour, but any party who will campaign on reducing VAT and simplifying corporate and personal tax laws would get my attention. Rick in Macclesfield. Let's go to Kevin in the City of London, another new caller. Kevin, hi.
Hi, Nigel. Good evening. I've got my own business and I've been a lifelong Tory voter, but I must tell you that I'm appalled. I'm actually very upset at what now masquerades as a Tory party, pretending to support small and medium businesses, and all they see them as is a cash cow that they can continually milk and take money to waste, frittering it away on these vanity projects. It has been nothing short of disgraceful the way the Tory party's behaved in the last 10 or so years. We don't seem to stand for anything anymore. All we want to do is copy what the Labour Party are doing. And as for the approach to Brexit, I mean, it genuinely does upset me as what I regard as I'm a very patriotic person. I voted to leave, much to the detriment of my own business, but it was something I believed in strongly. I look at what's happening. They're frittering away all the benefits that are ready to be had were we simply embrace a real and meaningful Brexit. It's very, very upsetting for so many people.
And one of the things, Kevin, they could do is simplify rules, simplify laws, cut red tape, which, of course, disproportionately affects small and medium-sized businesses, and you can't do that with a Chequers deal. Kevin, they've got no connection with you whatsoever. Will you vote for them again next time, or maybe not?
I with a heavy heart, I would vote Tory, but only because I could never bring myself to place a socialist vote. But what you say is right, Nigel. It must make you want to weep what you see, the hard work that you did to get us to the position we were in. We need somebody to do something about it.
Kevin, I see huge opportunity for Brexit. I'm sick of the voice of business being represented by the CBI, the giant multinationals, and one of the reasons it's great to have all of you on this show tonight. You are the real economy. Kevin, thank you. You're listening to the Nigel Farage Show here on LBC at 6:45. And small and medium-sized business does not have a big enough, strong enough voice in our country, given just how important it is. 60% of jobs in the private sector are provided by little companies, and there are now 5.2 million small companies and sole traders out there. And when Philip Hammond stands up and says the Tory party are the party of business, I think it's ringing a bit hollow, though a lot of you say rather have Philip Hammond and Theresa May, whatever you think of them, than Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell. But are they really on your side? Gladys is calling from Corsham. Hi, Gladys.
Hi, Nigel. I didn't think I'd ever be calling you because I'm a firm conservative.
Right.
And some days I think, you flirt with UKIP, but you don't, join UKIP. However, on small businesses, and I am entirely on the side of your recent callers. I'm an accountant.
Yep.
This government is not the Conservative government I worked very hard for, that I voted for. They have no idea what small government is about. They have no idea what lower taxes does. They don't understand it. You do. A couple of MPs do, like Jacob Rees-Mogg. But the others, do you know why they're so anti-small business? They have never been in small business, as you said.
No,
they've
absolutely.
either been, back holders, or they've been interns, and they've been. It just bothers me. This government treats us as if they were a Labour government. They treat small people
as an
like
accountant,
me.
Gladys. As an accountant, Gladys, would I be right in saying that not just government, but that HMRC have made the lives of the self-employed and small businesses much harder in the last few years?
Well, they come after people they know they can get the money from. And even if you... And who gave them all these powers? It was George Osborne.
Yeah.
Osborne gave them all these powers, and they treat every taxpayer as if we were crooks.
Yeah, the
We're
letters...
not crooks. We don't
the letters
try
are...
and stop
It's threatening, isn't it? It's threatening. It's unpleasant. It's actually unnecessary, much of what they send out, isn't it?
Well, yes. If only they were run properly. I mean, the last person that pushed this making tax digital right up the food chain, I thought when he was moved, David Gauke, from HMRC, from Treasury, we would be able to say to them, for God's sakes, you've got to get something right before you launch the next thing. They don't listen. We've got representation. Well, we've got people telling them that they're doing something wrong. We're not saying don't do it. We're saying get it right before you launch it. And all they're doing is making us small people have to pay for their grand ideas. We don't have those big departments that can do GDPR and get it right.
Yeah, no, I mean, every single piece of legislation, Gladys, impacts, doesn't it, on small businesses disproportionately. Gladys, thank you. Thank you for picking up the call. And that was very interesting, folks, to hear that from somebody who's an accountant, working with small businesses, a loyal Conservative, but she understands. This lot in government don't get small business. They don't even understand it. Freddie is calling from Cambridge. Hi, Freddie.
Hi. You were talking about how difficult it is for small businesses to have to use lawyers and the complexity of it all and so on.
Well, and the cost, yeah.
Yes, and the cost. And a colleague of mine and myself have had for a couple of years a small business which tries to help other small businesses on the difficulties of procedure. We don't practice law, but on the difficulties of procedure, because so much goes wrong at the procedural end. And now it's even worse because, the big sort of changes that they've made in court rules and so on, in some ways they're good. In other ways they're not, because they just leave people who haven't got the money to go to the high levels of court. They can't go there, so they're left with a sort of weird jungle of stuff, which is all about ombudsmen and regulators. And half the time, those people don't have any sort of procedure to follow. And what we're doing now, we've given up doing one-to-ones because it's been so much in demand, and we're just setting up some workshops throughout the country to show people that the skills that you need to be an advocate and to be a lawyer are not skills you can't learn. I mean, there are other things you have to learn if you want to be those things, but you can break it up and you can learn, and we're hoping to get out of these workshops, a body of people who will stay, so that we've got a pool of people who can help each other and cross-reference and so on and so forth, and perhaps even a new type of manager who will be specific to the company and whose job will be to what... So, some of us are feeling that we need
Yeah, well, good for you. No, good for you, because I think there must be quite a lot of quite scared people out there, scared of legal procedures, scared of the letters that come through the post, and your concept of self-help and training. No, very good indeed, thank you. Shouldn't be necessary, but it clearly is. Gareth is calling from Croydon. Hi, Gareth.
Hello, Nigel. How are you?
Yeah, fine. So you're a small businessman too?
Yeah, indeed. We employ about 25, 30 people in the UK, and we've got a couple of people in Europe as well. And I do think the government's kind of caught between a rock and a hard place in terms of some of the choices they need to make because of the kind of austerity measures, and they're trying to squeeze people from all angles. But they need to be careful in terms of business, because the the level of work and responsibilities we now have to take in terms of things like managing the pensions, we have to offer flexible working, we have to, all of which are very admirable, good things, but they've increased the tax burden on the business. The demands on us are forever, ever increasing. And as somebody who's running a business, then you need to start thinking about the risk and reward, because you're borrowing money, you're putting your house on the line, you're taking all these things. So there'll become a pinch point where you decide, is this actually worth the element of risk and effort for what you end up left with after everyone's had their
and there is this share. You know, Gareth, there is this impression that business owners, small or medium, as effectively as you are, that somehow they're all out to do their workers in. They're all greedy. They're all rapacious. And actually, most people I know that run businesses treat their employees like family. Their relationships that are really, really important. And much of the time, Gareth, I felt for many years I was working, taking all the risk and doing it for the employees and not getting much out of it myself. So there does come a point, doesn't there?
There is a risk and reward, and I think in terms of this employee, I think you have to treat your people you work with, staff, with respect. We're pretty much at full employment. There are, if you're not being fair and reasonable in the workplace, they can go and find somewhere else with more money or whatever else. So, but there is that pressure on business where it looks like a wonderful place to be, but when you have those bills coming, there's no one to fall back on. No one's going to help you. It's on you, and you've got the wages and all the responsibilities. So
I know, and it is a big responsibility.
Need to get the balance right, and there needs to be enough left in it.
We could do with people like you in Parliament, Gareth, who understood it, who've done it. That's what we need. Thank you. Moving on to David in Sutton. Yet another new caller, of course. David, hi.
Hi, Nigel.
So is Philip Hammond on your side, David?
Well, so essentially my point was, I actually sort of started training as an accountant at Deloitte many years ago, but I'm a doctor now. I do accounts, or did accounts back in the day for a lot of my friends who were doctors, and the ones that are self-employed can sort of, to a great degree, afford to pay to some extent what they want in taxes, 10% or 15%. I'm employed as a very junior doctor, and I actually pay almost sort of 50% of my salary goes out. National insurance, pensions in the NHS, which is mandatory of 12%, plus...
David, I think we all feel overtaxed. But hey, government maybe doesn't connect. David, I'm going to have to love you and leave you. We've run out of time, I'm sorry to say. Fascinating. Lots and lots of you there running your own businesses, feeling government's not really on your side. I'll finish with this on Twitter. I run a small light manufacturer. We've got 2 workshops and a retail store less than a mile away from a Tory conference in Birmingham. Tell Philip Hammond to come down and show me that they are the party of business. They don't care about us. We're too small, says Shah. You've been listening to the Nigel Farage Show. I'm back tomorrow at 6. At 10 tonight, it's Tom Swarbrick. But up next, it's Ian Dale.
Thank you very much, Nigel. And we're